7 o'clock. Let's call this this regular school board meeting of the Silver Falls School District to order. Debbie, want to note attendance? Okay, please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first item is we get a presentation from the Silverton Middle School Choir. So who's going to bring them in? Okay. Yeah, why don't you get him on? I think where the rumblings from. Okay. Is that ready or not?
Front row, step forward, and take 10 steps this way. Back row, take like 2 steps that way. I think you guys are switched. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity. We are really excited to perform for you this evening. We have 2 numbers. The first is Ringing Ringing, featuring Jaden in Arizona on the handbells, and then we will finish with a song called This Holiday.
Breezes will carry along.
thank you parents, teachers, students, staff for allowing us this opportunity, and especially thank you to Mr. Davidson for supporting us all the way through this. Thank you so much, and thank you, Debbie, for setting everything up and making this happen. She's the go-getter. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks again, guys. On to the more mundane parts of the meeting now, I guess. Anyway, I don't know how to follow that. I guess next up is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna second.
Okay.
I didn't know if, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up is our student representatives with Larissa Kesh and Olivia Myers. You guys can wait till the noise settles out, I suppose.
Hey, Shelley, on the next one, I'll have to get someone back.
All right. Just one of us do it. It's okay.
All right, guys.
Pretty good. I like
Yeah,
that.
good.
That was fun. Okay, good evening and happy December. Many exciting sport, club, and activities have been happening at the high school. Per usual, we will start with the sports. Girls basketball has an overall record of 3-1, led by Coach Cal Wold. Their first league game is a home game this Tuesday against West Albany. The boys basketball team has an overall record of 4-0. Their coach is Jamie McCarty. Their first league game is this Tuesday at West Albany.
Next we have swimming. The Silverton Swim has a meet scheduled for this Tuesday at the Silverton Community Pool. The team will be competed against South Albany. Wrestling. The wrestling team has completed 2 meets so far, and the team has another one coming up this Thursday. The meet will be hosted by Silverton at 6.
Let's move on to clubs and activities. The Mental Health Awareness Club is having several enrichment opportunities leading up to the holiday break. On December 13th, they are having a mental health professional come and talk about the effects of social media on mental health, and on December 20th, a therapy dog and its handler are coming to share about how dogs can positively affect mental health.
Silverton's Theater has another play in the works. Auditions for the winter show, Peter and the Starcatcher, begin next week, December 11th through 14th. The show is scheduled for February 15th, 16th, 17th, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Another exciting event for the theater program is coming up is the Children's Theater. The Children's Theater class has written an original show that will take on the road to local elementary schools. Its tour starts on January 15th. This is the 30th year for the program.
On Friday, December 14th, Los Aguilas Club will be participating in the decoration of a Christmas tree at the Celebrate Families Holiday Festival event.
Silverton FFA has been having great success in their competitions. The Ag Mechanics team placed 12th at Nationals, the Vet Science team placed 3rd at State, and the Ag Sales team placed 10 at State. FFA is also doing a lot of fundraising this month. They have sold 250 trees and have raised $9,000 so far for future FFA events. The Parley Pro debate team has begun practicing. This week is very busy for FFA. State officers are visiting Silverton this week, and the Green Hand and chapter ceremony is happening. State FFA officers are coming this week.
Computer Science Education Week last Thursday at Silverton High School was a success. School-wide participation doubled this year, and more than 200 students participated in an hour of computer programming. The tech department expanded to offer tech students the opportunity to invite friends interested in technology to participate in the computational cookie decorating and microbit fun. It is exciting to see local business owners and former students visiting and reconnecting with current technology students to support to support technology and 3D manufacturing projects funded by a grant. Also, last Thursday, the high school had another extension opportunity. Well, they had several. A firefighter from Portland came to talk to students as well as activities such as yoga, skateboarding, and how to coach basketball class.
This following week, the 17th through the 21st, is our school's Winter Week, where we are celebrating the Fine Arts Winter Program. Each day we have an activity to demonstrate the Fine Arts program. Also during Winter Week, we have our dress-up days. Monday, Pajama Day, Tuesday, Flannel Day, Wednesday, Holiday Hat and Socks Day, Thursday, Snow Day, and Friday, Ugly Sweater Day. This Thursday, the 13th, is a general council meeting. Representatives from all 4 classes, all the AGs, clubs, and activities will meet to advocate for the needs of the students and improvements the school can make.
This year, through ASB and the student body, we raised $6,000 for the Tree of Giving, and we are able to spend $60 on 100 students in our community. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our public comment period. Read the statement. We are glad you're here and welcome you to address the board at this time with your ideas, opinions, questions, concerns, or compliments. Please be certain to sign in before you present. Remember that we all model the way for our students, and we ask that you share your thoughts in a respectful way. The board's role during public comment is to listen. Rarely will you get an immediate response to information. If there is a follow-up necessary, we will direct our superintendent to do that. In order to ensure equity among speakers, the board will limit remarks to 3 minutes per individual. If a group of 3 or more wishes to appoint a representative to speak on its behalf, the board will extend the time for remarks to 5 minutes. A second public comment will occur later in the agenda, specific to discussion and action items of this meeting. Would anybody like to address the board? Yeah, come on up. Hi. Please sign in
Okay,
and state your name.
my name is Scott Sanders. Do I need to put my address again? It was back there. Put it again.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. So my name's Scott Sanders. I live up off Bridge Creek. My daughter is going to go to Silvercrest next year. I am aware that they currently have a volunteer teacher, Abby Green. I guess she volunteers for the music
We no
program.
personnel here? Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm sorry. Just no. Okay, good.
Okay.
Good. No, go ahead. Please continue.
Okay, which I think is great of Abby. My wife went and visited the room recently during music time, and it sounds like it's pretty casual, which is fine because Abby's a volunteer. But I'm anxious for my daughter to have a good music program at Silvercrest, and I hear that there's a severe lack in the school district as a whole. I talked to Lainey Piper, and she put me up to this. So, but I'm happy to be here because honestly, like I may not be the equivalent of Lainey, but she's a spectacular example of how to squeak and hopefully get grease at some point. So as I grew up, I had music in my school district. I remember in K through 3, not much, and then starting in 4th grade, I found out that I had a pretty good voice and I could sing, and that became me. I was a singer all the way through high school. I played soccer. I was on JV 2 all the way through my junior year. I'm okay at sports, but it is not my excelling talent. I'm grateful that I found it in 4th grade so that I had something that I could build on and build a social group. And I know there is obviously music here in the school district, but it sounds like it's seriously lacking in some particular areas, and I apologize, but I don't know specifically. I know band is lacking in some of these areas, and obviously Silvercrest not having its own, even just a paid person for 1 hour a week or something. And I'd like to think that you guys agree that if only there was enough money and time for every special interest to be given an opportunity, but I have to say, it doesn't seem like music is really much of a negotiable area. At some level, it needs to be given priority. A teacher to make rounds to all these smaller schools that they can have that experience to have music at some level in a structured environment. Please pardon my naivety. I don't know how boards work exactly and how much control you have as a whole, but I have to assume that you as a board are the ones that would pursue any opportunities available for students. And I would hope that that would be given some level of discussion or priority of some kind. And with all due respect, I have to ask, or I have to wonder, I have wondered, Silverton is an expensive place to live. Houses are expensive here, taxes are expensive here. How is it that living in a prosperous community, can we not compete with Salem Kaiser with their music programs and at least give our students some sort of opportunity similar to what Salem Kaiser has? That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Okay, anybody else? Charles? No.
My name is Charles Baldwin. I live at 3301 Seminole Road. I'm coming to you tonight as a Rotarian. Today I had two wonderful experiences in your school district, in our school district. Your high school choir came before the Rotary Club at noon today, and I must say they deserved the standing ovation that they got from their performance. It was wonderful, just wonderful. And I think you should all know that and should be proud of it. Probably have heard them yourselves. Then this afternoon I went out to deliver dictionaries to the 4th grade at Victor Point and was very happily welcomed there by the director of the school and the school secretary and ushered into the 4th grade, where I found 24 very attentive, very well-mannered, and very interesting students. We had about a 15 to 20-minute conversation about their activities, their interests, their enthusiasm for school, and it was just a wonderful experience for me personally, and I don't know how many of you get into the classroom to meet these children, but that particular class was a nice class, a wonderful opportunity for me. So thank you for managing the school district and bringing that to my life today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Next month, I would like to address something that I have of concern on the budget committee. And I've been talking to the superintendent and to Steve about it, but I'm going to wait until next month to get back to you.
We'll see you then.
Start the new year
Thank
strong.
you.
It's the holidays.
Okay, anybody else?
Sarah Weitzman, I signed in the back. Here tonight representing Silverton Friends of Music. It's great to hear the middle school choir sing tonight, but I actually, I didn't know they were going to be here until I looked at the agenda this afternoon. I was like, yay. I just wanted to say music really abounds in this town right now. I don't know if any of you were at the tree lighting on Friday, but there were children singing, there were people singing, there was people processing and singing, there was spontaneous outbreak of song at the Christmas time for Santa to light the tree. The choraleers were there. There's music everywhere, and this town really appreciates it and loves it. And I just wanted to say thank you to Jennifer for bringing up the music issue again at your last work session and bringing it forth to the table so that you can maybe have a discussion about it again, because it hasn't been on an agenda as a board to discuss since I think roughly around May of 2016, somewhere around there, a while. So I just want to say thank you for bringing it up, bringing it to the table again, having a discussion, trying to problem solve, and trying to hopefully figure out a way to bolster our elementary music education. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, and there's lots of programs happening. One right now, I think. Tuesday, tomorrow night is the middle school band. Thursday is the high school band. Next Wednesday is the high school choir. There's multiple productions this week at Evergreen, Victor Point, Central Howells. Next week, Scotts Mills. Everybody's having programs, so get out there and check them out.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Moving on. Next up is discussion items, but we don't have anything listed. Is there anything you brought up? Okay. Moving on. Administrator and staff reports. First up is Andy to talk about the governor's proposed budget for the next 2 years.
And first, Mr. Chairman, if I can share the discussion about music, what that could look like in the school district, the options, cost, logistics, instructional time, a number of things will be prepared in a presentation during your January work session. That also happens to be the same night as the joint City Council School Board meeting, which begins at 6 o'clock, held at the school district office. But once we're finished with that joint City Council School Board meeting, then we'll move on to your your work session. Okay. And that'll be one of the topics.
Okay, great.
Okay. So the Governor Brown released her recommended budget on November 28th. On Board Book, we put a link to her full budget for anybody that wanted to take a look and dive into it. I've given you, as a board this evening, a couple of documents. Actually, it's a back-to-back document. One side, it says Governor's Recommended Budget Overview, and the other side, it says Governor's Recommended Budget K-12 Current Service Level. And these are copies of documents I received last week at the Confederation of Oregon School Administrators Law Conference in Eugene. And so it's directly from that conference. I want to highlight a couple of things for you because I think it'll help as we move into the budgeting season. First, it's very early. The legislature has not even begun yet, but the budget is required, the governor is required to submit a recommended budget about this time of year. And then there are plenty of procedural matters that go into place once the legislature begins. The Ways and Means Committee will also produce a budget prior to the legislative session, and then over the course of whatever length of the legislative session it is, ultimately there will be a budget approved by the legislature, and within that budget will be funding for K-12 education in the state of Oregon for the 2019-21 biennium. It's a 2-year budget. And by law, as you see on this document, the governor's recommended budget and actually the legislative budget is required to be a balanced budget. So the revenue and expenditures need to equal at the state level, just like we do at a district level. So with that said, I bring you some news that is couched with guarded optimism. And I share that with you because this is the first time in my experience as superintendent, and that I can recall even as an educator, that the governor has recommended a budget that is at, and in this case, slightly higher than the estimated current service level of all programs and positions in schools in the state of Oregon. Generally speaking, the governor produces something, in some cases, significantly less, and then the legislature is required to help figure that out. I think that's partially reflective of the governor's budget priorities, partially reflective of her priorities on K-12 education, and she has publicly shared that on multiple occasions. And I think it's partially reflective of a healthy economy. Keep in mind that Oregon schools are funded largely by revenue generated through income tax, about 80%, and the remaining 20%-ish is local property revenue. In most cases, that's property tax. That's the case for Silver Falls School District. So with the governor coming out with this budget, I put on the second page a couple of points that I think should be or may be of interest to you. The recommended budget for schools is actually at $8.97 billion, which is about almost $800 million more than the current biennium. She also has $100 million to help pay down the K-12 PERS liability for the unfunded liability related to PERS. As we move into the budget season, and we'll have a lot more discussion about this, there's the reality of the unfunded liability on this school district. You've already received an estimate that each year of the 2-year biennium that'll hover around $750,000 for this school district. And we're also moving into a bargaining season with the License Association, and of course there's plenty of unknowns with that, as is the case at the beginning of each bargaining session. But the bottom paragraph that I gave you, I think, is really important to note, and that is similar to the comment I just made, and that is that the budget is at a slightly higher than the current service level for the state of Oregon. Now, the governor has also proposed an investment fund, which would, if approved by the legislature, so I'm taking a look at my notes here, if approved by the legislature, would actually approve or authorize an additional about $1.25 billion for schools in the state of Oregon. And if it were to be authorized as proposed by the governor, this $1.25 billion would be used for K-12 School Improvement Fund, which would target things like a 180-day school year for all schools in the state of Oregon. Smaller class sizes, especially at the K-3 level, would also assist with things like potentially more instructional time, which would be also coupled with an extended school year. There would be money to fill out the balance of the Measure 98 dollars, which is your student success, high school student success revenue that was approved by the voters last year. Currently, that's only funded, I believe, at about the 60% proportion. There would be additional revenue if this is approved for early learning opportunities for low-income children, and the governor has actually proposed that all school districts in the state of Oregon have an early learning center or create early learning opportunities for students within their facilities or as a partnership with community organizations, let's say such as churches or civic centers or others, and that would also, of course, take some funding, and that has been stated as the governor's a priority. And then additional funding for early intervention, early childhood special education funding. So all told, if that's approved by the legislature, the K-12 education budget would be actually over $10 billion. Again, you're at about $8.02 billion right now. So that would be a pretty significant shift in funding for the state of Oregon. Advocates for funding education in Oregon believe not only is this a response to the healthy economy and the governor's priority, but also believe that it's a result of the joint legislative roadshow, the joint committee on student success last year that made multiple visits throughout the state of Oregon, right here close by in the Woodbridge School District, and they were able to get significant feedback of what the priorities are based upon the public interest in the state. The caveat to the additional funding, the investment package that the governor's proposed is that, it's my understanding that would take approval by the legislature, but also would be referred to the voters. So that, Tom and I had a conversation about this actually today, and I clarified that, but that funding would be targeted for education investment, those four goals that I just shared with you. The $8.97 billion that the governor has proposed, which is above the current service level for schools in Oregon, would be what the governor has recommended and anticipates the legislature approving. So I'm not going to make any wager on any of this, simply because a legislative session is upon us, and very interesting things always happen. Just as a matter of reference to you, keep in mind that in many years, we're not even certain what the actual funding level for schools will be at the same time that we're trying to form a 12-month budget for this school district, and Steve will comment on that just a little bit as we move ahead. So that's the other interesting dynamic with funding of schools in the state of Oregon, as in some cases, it's a big guess. Truly, and I can't minimize that. We believe we know how much we're going to get, but until the legislature approves it, we get it. So we'll know more as we move ahead. The second topic, if I may, Mr. Chairman, move right on to, because it relates to that, is the district budgeting process. I'm going to lean on Steve a little bit for this as well. He and I and district administration have been discussing some steps towards not changes, but maybe refinements to our district budgeting process. Some input from the budget committee last year and from the board was specific to an earlier start time on budgeting, some more specified opportunities related to public input, and processes in place to be certain that what you're receiving funding is clear and understandable, and from school to school to school is based upon what we anticipate to be the allotment or appropriation that we anticipate schools will receive. And again, we're largely going to base that either on the governor's budget or the co-chair's budget when we get that as we move into the new year. So Steve, did you want to comment a little bit more on our conversation today?
Sure. So the governor's budget really kicks off in earnest the budgeting season, even though we have discussions in the fall as well, and that is required by December 1st. It was released November 28th. The co-chair's budget usually doesn't come out until early February, and we don't get our first official estimate from ODE for the new year, in this case 1920, until by law by March 1st. So by that particular time, we are well into the budget building process. So that really won't change. It's just in the odd numbered years when there's a legislative session going on, we know a lot less than we did, say, during the process at that time last year, where we knew what the number was going to be. It was just a matter of, will that hold up? And the answer is yes, so far. So with that, we do have to move forward with our process. So right now, we're doing our enrollment and revenue projections, having discussions with the administration, and basically by mid-January, we will be getting budget worksheets to school principals and department chairs for them to start building their budgets. Now, within that time frame, in the January-February time frame, the principals will be holding stakeholder meetings, and they'll talk about that more, when they present their budgets, and we can talk about that more leading up to that. But they've had these processes in place before, but this is when they do that work in earnest as well. They're looking for input from staff and community members and that. So that'll be happening in January, February. Basically by the end of February 28th or so, we will ask them to submit their proposed budget to us. Usually they had until around mid-March in the past, but everything kind of counts back from our first budget committee date and the time that we need to put it all together. So in the past, we've typically had that first budget committee meeting just around the 20th, somewhere in the 20th, 23rd, third week of April. This year it's set for April 11th. So that will be our first budget committee meeting. So with all that being said, we'll only have about a month from the time we had our first ODE estimate. We're going to go ahead and use what we have now and adjust based on what we hear leading up to the co-chair's budget, and then make changes as we have time to make changes. And the nice thing about the design of the budget committee meetings is we'll have from early April through pretty much the end of May to have meetings. So we have one on April 11th and then one a few weeks later, but we also have time for another meeting or two if need be, based on conversations and decisions in our district, but also if something significantly changes at the state level, which of course most of you know that they've had budgets not be passed until well into June before. Hopefully it won't go that long this year. It didn't 2 years ago, but it does allow time for making adjustments on the move, even after a proposed budget is presented. So we think we've given ourselves a little more time to do that, especially in a legislative year, and for even more discussion if need be as well. So.
Yeah, good. I don't see any surprises. I mean, well, I guess the news is cautiously optimistic.
Right.
And we'll just go forward with that. Anybody have any questions for Steve or Andy?
Andy, did you say I didn't catch what you said about part of this might be referred to the voters?
The governor's budget includes a base budget of $8.97 billion and approximately $1.25 billion additional revenue for investment purposes, like the additional Measure 98, early childhood education, programs like that. The legislature approves that, that would be referred to the voters as a funding package, because it would likely be some kind of tax revenue generation. So
The 1.25?
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because that's above and beyond what the governor believes is affordable with the income tax revenue for K-12. So her budget
Oh, okay.
includes a base budget that will be funded by available income tax revenue, and an additional 1.25 that would be funded by an additional revenue package, 1.25 billion. So if that was approved by the voters, then that revenue would be made available. If that was not approved by the voters, then the money wouldn't.
So the 8.9 that she's proposing, that is based on income taxes taken in now?
Correct.
Because I was under the assumption that they were going to try to get more taxes for that part of the budget too, but that's...
Yeah, and this is the recommended budget, so
Yeah.
it's, everything is still up in the air with what will actually occur, but the governor believes that it's affordable with the revenue we have based upon the estimates that we're receiving, the revenue forecasts that we're receiving.
Yeah, that's essentially the conversation Andy and I had earlier today, trying to,
Yeah, I just needed some
yeah.
clarification.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions, anybody? Okay, next up, I guess, Steve, was just the basic financial report.
Yeah. So I've got a new format rolling out this month. If you want to put the landscape version next to the traditional general fund statement and kind of look at it side by side, but this new format I think is it's a little nicer to look at, a little less accounting guy-like. Kind of infographic, got some graphics, but basically let's look at the traditional one. November's always a fun month to talk about as far as, we receive a heavy amount of our revenue in November, which is in direct opposition to June when we have the heaviest expenses and least revenue. So November is when most of our property tax revenue comes in, and into December a little bit, and then we do get some in February and May as well. But you can see that we received 94% of our budgeted current year property tax revenue in November, along with our normal monthly state school fund payment as well. So that's pushed our budgeted, or our actual current revenue received to 57% of budget and 62% overall when you account for our carryover. So 62% of budgeted resources, and at the bottom there almost 29% of budgeted expenses. Everything is in line with the budget. I think if you look over to the new format, it gives a little bit kind of new and different way to look at it. It also adds, I think, another helpful element. It's not just actual versus budget, it's actual versus budget, but also actual versus prior year at this point in the year. So kind of gives you comparable both on the revenue and expense side in terms of where we were at this time last year versus versus this year. So and then it also on the expense side of things, it summarizes everything at the object level: salaries, associated payroll costs, purchase services, which it does do on my other model as well. Just on my other model it gets a little busy because I break it down by object by major function: instructional versus support, with the objects below each. This one just summarizes the object without the breakdown at function level. So kind of another nice way to look at it in a little more simplistic format. So then at the bottom it basically gives you a pictorial of the revenue on the left and the expenses on the right, prior versus current year. I think you all have colored versions. I'm not sure that the folks in the audience have a colored version, but basically the bars on the left are prior year data, and the bars on the right are current year data. So revenue, is ahead of pace a little bit from last year, which we'd expect, but so are expenses. So
That's helpful. Thank you, Steve, for getting that prior year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Any questions for Steve?
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Steve. Okay, next up is Mark Hannon to talk about Silvercrest School and district support services.
Thanks, sir.
Is this different from the one that you sent us?
No, it's in,
Oh,
it's
same
in
one.
your packet.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I'm a hard copy person, so.
Well, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's all right, thanks.
Well, good evening, folks. As usual, I'll begin tonight by addressing my district responsibilities, which have changed slightly from last year. Dana Peterson has reclaimed 504 supervision for the district, and in place of that responsibility, I now supervise the district mentoring program for our first and second year new to the profession teachers. We just had a meeting this evening, and it's been more fun than I even imagined working with those teachers. So I'll begin tonight with nursing. We currently employ 3 nurses for the district. As most of you already know, we do so by contracting with Legacy Medical Group. This is a unique partnership with our local hospital that we're extremely fortunate to benefit from. I want to briefly describe some of the nursing duties that they face day to day. Our nurses are responsible for and oversee our K2 hearing screenings. With the help of our local Lions Club, they also oversee the K5 vision screenings. Due to recent legislation mandating vision screenings, we also receive a small per student reimbursement from the state to help offset the cost of providing this service. Our nurses are also responsible for updating and maintaining all of the medical protocols for our students, and in their spare time, they take care of the immediate medical needs of the schools they're assigned. To keep me informed of their issues, I meet with the nurses and a representative from the hospital monthly. Subsequently, and you've heard me say this in the past, I believe at some point in the very near future, our district will have to consider adding nursing services, as 3 nurses simply cannot adequately cover a district of our size and with the increasing medical needs of our students. On to ELD services. We currently have 144 ELL students throughout the district, which is slightly down from last year, which was at 162. Our district recently went through a desk monitoring process, which means we provide documentation to ODE for our forms, processes, and procedures. I want to give special recognition to Lori Wire, who did the lion's share of the work. Lori is an ELD teacher for the district, but a portion of her FTE is ELD support, and she put in a ton of time and effort into this project. Currently, we spend the majority of our Title III money on Imagine Learning, which is the curriculum support for our ELL students. The rest of the money is spent on staff development. We have 19 hours of assistant time split up throughout the district by 7 employees. We also have 4.2 FTE split up by 7 teachers throughout the district. The teachers and I, again, will be attending the State ELD Conference this spring in Eugene. I found this conference is not only helpful, but it provides our district with valuable time to get together and discuss how to improve our program. I will also be spending a portion of my time this year visiting each school with ELL students to see in person the great things our teachers are doing in class. On to migrant services. We currently have 65 migrant students district-wide, which is also slightly down from last year of 82. Migrant students qualify for 3 years, and if they remain in the same school district over the course of those 3 years, they no longer qualify. So we want to keep them, but then they no longer qualify for migrant services if we do keep them. So it's kind of a catch-22. We will again be offering Migrant Summer School this year at Silverton High School. This past summer, we ran Migrant Summer School concurrently with our Measure 98 Summer School. Migrant Summer School, as you may recall, is provided as the result of collaborating with the Willamette ESD and the Silver Falls School District. Because of this relationship, we were also able to hire at no cost to the district an additional staff member to help recruit and support migrant families in the district. We were fortunate to hire Amber Kotz, who is housed at Silverton High School. I have an upcoming meeting to debrief summer school and whether we will continue to provide both Measure 98 Migrant Summer School, Measure 98 and Migrant Summer School at the same time. One issue that I know we need to address from the migrant student perspective is that because summer school started later than usual this past summer, we lost some students due to their parents' work schedule. Additionally, this spring, we will again be sending a contingent of students from Silverton High School to the annual Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference held at Western Oregon University. Mr. Belando and I attended the administration portion of that conference last year, and I plan to do so again this year. On to homeless services. We currently have identified 50 students district-wide that qualify under the McKinney-Vento Act, which means they receive services for being homeless. This number is down significantly from last year, which is a good thing. I think it may relate to what Mr. Belando was talking about earlier with the improvement in the economy, but it also could be a process thing. The process to identify students can be difficult, and we continue to work with schools in the district to see if we have students that may qualify. We often find out that students qualify through the grapevine, if you will. There's really no process, and people are typically not excited to have that information get out. So it's sensitive information, so sometimes we have to just hear it through the grapevine. I was recently asked and now attend a monthly advisory meeting that is a collaboration of Silverton stakeholders discussing how to support the homeless in Silverton. This group is the result of the work that Mayor Palmer's subcommittee completed and that I previously participated in. I obviously represent the school-age students from the Silver Falls School District in this meeting. Excuse me. The definition of homeless is a little different for the school district compared to the city's definition, so it's important for the school district to be represented when discussing limited resources. On to the mentor program. There are 30 first or second year teachers participating in this year's mentor program. These are all new to the profession teachers, with 5 of the 30 teachers coming to us from Mount Angel. The funding for this program is provided by the state through a grant, which ends this year. We hope to receive it again. It's a 2-year grant, so we hope to receive it again for the next 2 years. Let's see, our 3 teacher mentors leading these new educators are Judy Olson, Kevin Zinchenko, and Christy Sander. You may recognize those names, as all 3 are former Silver Falls classroom teachers, and our mentees are fortunate to work with such experienced educators. There are 10 total meetings scheduled over the course of the school year, and we just finished meeting number 4 prior to coming here. I meet with the mentors the week prior to each meeting to plan the upcoming meeting. It was during my first meeting with the mentors that we chose to rotate the meetings to different schools in the district. So we plan to hold meetings in 10 different schools, including an upcoming meeting at JFK High School in Mount Angel. Each meeting begins with the principal of the hosting school describing what makes their school unique to the district and what challenges they face. We feel this gives the new teachers a first-hand perspective of what the teachers and students face day to day in those respective buildings. Our first meeting was spent doing an activity that allowed the new teachers the opportunity to tell us which topics would be most helpful to cover over the course of the year. During the school year, the mentors also meet with their assigned teachers to do classroom observations and provide feedback. The goal of the program is to support new teachers in order to keep them in the profession. On to Silvercrest. I want to begin my Silvercrest report with again thanking you for adding counseling services to the rural schools. I know there are many needs in our district and a finite amount of money. It sounds like more than usual, which is nice to hear. But this shows the importance you place on the mental health of our students. Paula Cross is our counselor, and she spends Tuesdays and Thursdays at Silvercrest meeting with students, and her days are literally scheduled to the minute. I plan to bring Paula with me to my spring board presentation so she can provide you more details with how her time is positively impacting our student body. We currently have 138 Silvercrest students, which is slightly down from this time last year at 145. We had a larger than usual 8th grade class promote to the high school and a current kindergarten class of 12. Actually, that's exactly the number that's different between last year's number and this year's number. Seven more kids promoted came in. Last fall, I reported to you about the change to our middle school configuration in which we departmentalized grades 5 through 8. So just to recap, we have one teacher teaching science and social studies, one teaching language arts, and one teaching math and PE. Each of those teachers is now teaching in their area of expertise, licensure, and passion. I've provided you with STAR data in the past. In this presentation, I'd like to provide you with SBAC data, which is what I passed out to you earlier. Although we only test grades 3 through 8, our performance is a school-wide effort and one the entire staff takes very seriously. What I've provided you is a comparison from 2016-17 to 2017-18 by class. So third grade performance in 16-17 is compared to fourth grade performance in 17-18, and so on. This is not exactly apples to apples, as it doesn't take into account new students to those classes, but it's really close. As you can see, we're making improvements, but our goal is always 100% met, so we have room to grow. And if there's a number next to the D that doesn't say 0%, it's a number that we continue to work on every day. Lastly, I want to share with you the great work our teachers are doing in their PLCs. We have broken the staff into K4 teams led by Sarah Deliski and 5 through 8 team, A 5 through 8 team led by Susan Sears, both sitting behind me as a matter of fact. These two teams are working hard to break down data by class and individual student. As you may recall, we measure our students on a growth model through STAR, with each teacher striving to get 100% of their students to grow at least 1 year in reading and 1 year in math. And for students that are below grade level, the goal is accelerated growth, which means 1.5 years of growth in 1 year. All of this work is to help the district meet the Silverton High School 100% graduation rate goal. Questions?
Comment, good data.
They do the work, the folks sitting behind me.
I know.
I have a couple questions for you. I just made some notes as you were reading.
Lay them on me.
Under the migrant services
Yes.
portion, it says we currently have 65 migrant students district-wide, which is also slightly down from last year, 82. They qualify for migrant students qualify for 3 years, and if they remain in the same school district over the course of those years, they no longer qualify as migrant. So what's the percentages? Do you have any percentages of up and down in the last few years of the migrant students?
It stayed relatively flat.
Okay.
Well, actually, if you want to go way back, the numbers are dramatically down.
Right.
We years ago we had migrant students probably. I would guess at least double that number, and the high school had more migrant students than we currently have. A number of things have changed over the course of the years. Students have become, they come to Silver Falls or Silverton High School and they like it and they want to continue to stay here, which is awesome, and we want them to do that. The positions that qualify parents to be migrant workers are not as plentiful in this area as much as they used to be. So there's a number of factors that go into that number going down. Ideally, we'd like that number to be 0 and keep them all here. So.
Right. So you're finding that they're staying here longer. They're the 3-year mark.
Yes, and what we found over the years is if they stay here, they graduate from here.
That was my actually next question.
Yes.
Is they're finding they're staying here, and then the graduation.
I can't speak to the last year. Wade could probably speak to that, but I know when I was principal at the high school, we graduated 100% of our migrant students.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was based almost completely on the work that Monica Hansen did over the course of her career.
Right. Okay, thank you. I have one more question for you. On the homeless services?
Yes.
You said it's a little difficult you kind of hear it through the grapevine. So every year my kids have had to fill out forms for the high school. And I thought that was included in those forms was what's your primary residence, or do you not have one? You know, I thought there was a area on those forms that were required to turn into at least whatever school you're at.
We get a
and then
lot
district.
of the numbers that are identified based on that process.
Okay.
But we have a lot of families that are not truthful on those forms,
Okay.
or are embarrassed, or for whatever reason. And then we get a number of families, for example, a student could be qualified as homeless for doubling up with another family.
Right.
And that could happen during the school year, and it often does. And once it does, they qualify as homeless until the end of the school year, and then we start all over again. Even if their housing situation changes and they gain permanent housing over the course of the school year, they still qualify until the end of the school year.
Okay. You answered multiple questions I had.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, thanks for clarifying on all that and getting in detail. I appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, on that migrant trend, do you know if that's a statewide trend, or is that something?
You know, that's a great question. What I have heard is Oregon, yes, it's a state trend, and actually, I had heard that our migrant numbers were moving further east in the United States, more towards the Midwest, and it was following particular job opportunities, and I don't know what's changed in Oregon's economy that has made those jobs fewer and fewer, but that's just something that I have heard, that the numbers are down statewide.
Yeah. Okay, that's better for kids.
I'm sure that a part of it is the current political climate that makes that a little bit more challenging for folks to move around.
Yeah, jobs. I know as a farmer, there's less of that type of work out there. Typically, you try to hire someone and keep them. There's just less, of those migratory type crops that took like strawberries. There's just less of that.
Well, keep them here. We'll graduate them.
Well, yeah, and so just generally, as most of the farmers that I know, we'd like to hire someone and just try to keep them instead of relying on
awesome
people. So yeah, it's good trend.
So I just have one more question or comment on the mentor program.
You bet.
Your first year doing it, or first.
Loving it.
All right, I know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention to you that the TEL survey, the TEL Oregon survey, is a great indicator of there are questions about from mentoring program, and I think the numbers. I mean, I have the whole thing right here. I've kind of dissected it, but the numbers for the mentoring program or the support haven't been so great in the past. But I think there's a trend that's moving up with that in our district. And so I wanted to ask you do you know what the process was before and what you've changed now?
Well, I can't speak to what it was before, because I wasn't involved in it, but I can tell you that, and I appreciate you bringing up those statistics, I can tell you that those statistics are what drove many of our decision-making plans this year. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we were doing this year was meeting the needs that the teachers felt needed met, not just something that we come in and say, this is what we think you need. So we broke the year up into thirds, and our first meeting we spent asking the teachers to plan for us what they needed over the next 3 meetings. And actually, we just spent an activity tonight, because we've been through our 3 meetings planning the next 3. And I'll meet with the mentors, and we will plan for the next 3 meetings. And on that 3rd meeting, we'll plan for the last 3. So we're constantly asking, how can we best support them? And the beauty of that is they may not even know how we can best support them until they get there. So that's why we broke it up throughout the year. And I think that's probably going to help address some of those numbers that you're referring to.
And what you said and your explanation here, I really think that's going to be helpful. with those numbers, so kudos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've heard
Thank
really
you.
good things about that program.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful for those new teachers.
Well, I can't speak for the teachers, but I can tell you it's energized me, and I'm getting something from it that I wasn't anticipating, and it's fun being around youth.
Well, and you have experience. You have prior experience too.
That's a polite way of saying I'm getting old. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thanks both.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, next up, Brett Davison for Silverton Middle School.
I'd like to start off by giving a shout out to Mrs. Botayev. She does a great job with kids and is super flexible because she is at Bethany in the morning, Robert Frost in the middle of the day, and then at the middle school in the afternoon. So she has to restart her day 3 times, and is stretched pretty thin, but does a fantastic job, and from what I hear from the other principals too. So it's great to see her come here and show you what she's been up to. So this is my second year at Silverton Middle School. Again, it's good to be back in town and in the community that I really care about. And I've got a lot of stuff to go through, so I'm just going to dive right in. I just have some basic stats up there on the top. Our current enrollment is 463, which is a little up from the past few years. Ideally, in my situation at the middle school with our building, this feels okay. Too much more than this. We were at one point, we were at 470. We had some people move out. It was starting to feel, even that small a number, it's starting to feel a little crammed. We don't have any more rooms. I think I have 3 staff members that I've cleared out closets that they have meetings in. And so we're pretty tight, but we're making do. Our class sizes, you can see right there, our grade 7 is the one that's bumping up those numbers. And then I have our state report card from the last 3 years. And you can see we're up a little bit in ELA. In math, we kind of have we're down at 38 and then 44% and then down to 40, which is just below the state on that one. And then science, we had a big bump up from the last couple of years. Diving down into the back pages of the state report card, some positive stuff from that is when, at least from us, we're always looking for the positive because we're proud of what we've been doing, but we still want to get better. And like Mark said, I'll echo that, we want to be 100%. So we're always looking for where we're struggling and where we're doing well. Our growth data for both math and ELA was pretty strong, all levels, level 3 and level 4. So we're doing something right in that, and some of the things I'll talk about later will address some of the things we're trying to do to, improve our state report card. That's the only thing, but it is an important indicator of how we're doing academically. Couple events that I have down here. There's a lot going on, but just had to pick a few. One of them, it seems odd to put down on here, but was a success in our minds, was one of my goals, I try to be very simple with things and clear cut with things, and one of the things I always hated as a teacher was the first day. I was a day 2 teacher. Give me day 2, or give me week 2 when we get to normal. And so we talked as a staff and especially in the office about how can we clean up the first week of school to take care of some of the craziness. It's going to be crazy anyway. Let's just try to make it less crazy. Less crazy on the teachers, less crazy on the students. And so we moved that all the paperwork as much as we could, and fees and lockers and schedules and everything to before school started, kind of like the high school does. And we had about 85% of our families come. Number one, the kids wanted their lockers, so they came for that, and they wanted their schedules, but we tried to get all of that busy work stuff done before school even started. And that was really successful, and we're going to try to beef that up next year and try to get parents on Pinnacle before school starts and all sorts of stuff that we can throw out there just so week 1 is not as crazy as it normally is. We had our Veterans Assembly. The torch was passed from Darby Hector to Jackie Renaud with doing Veterans Assembly. We had Black Hawk helicopter land on the football field, and all sorts of cool stuff with that. A lot of veterans come. It was really special time. We took our trip up to the Rue Farms up to Victor Point for Adopt a Farmer Day. We've sent one class up to OMSI for the King Tut exhibit. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about that. It's a pretty neat thing. We're going to send another one up. We had our Ashland trip. So we got a lot of stuff going on at the middle school. Probably the biggest thing from last year to this year was the restructuring of a bunch of things. The first thing I have on your handout there is the advisory group restructuring. I'm a big believer in advisory groups and AG groups, or you might call them homeroom. I was at the high school when those were first implemented, and I loved my AG. The AG group was the last group I wanted to tell that I was leaving to go to Albany to get a new job, because I knew they were going to be mad at me, and they were. And it was an accountability factor. I knew those kids. I knew what grades they had. I knew their attendance. I knew what they liked, what they didn't like, and I knew how to help them. And I believe very strongly in that. And part of our restructuring was focusing on AG, adding some time to AG. We broke it up by grade, so now teachers that start with 6th grade AG will have them for 3 years, so they get to know them really well, so that they can pass them along to the freshman AG at the high school, who will have them for 4 years. So for that whole stretch of time, there will be 2 people in their life that know these kids really, really well, and can keep track of them and hold them accountable and encourage them or whatever they need to do. It also gave us some time to implement the SEL curriculum. It was at 19 minutes before, and so we're up to 29 minutes. So we can, we do Monday meetings as an AG, and Tuesday lesson days, and Wednesday's grade check, and then Thursday and Friday are kind of AG choice time. Do they have to buckle down and get to work? If they're getting things done, do they do something fun? Katie Ross, one of my English teachers, was telling me about their AG. As an AG, the kids chose to do some community service things for December. So in the month of December, every Friday, they're going around the neighborhood, around the middle school, and handing out candy canes and Christmas decorations and cleaning up and doing things like that. So it's that kind of family homeroom feel that is important to me, and we're trying to implement with our restructuring of AG. Probably the bigger restructuring was our going from 7 periods to 6. I know you guys have heard a little bit about that with some people talking on the board, so I wanted to address that. And I have listed down a few, and there's more, but I didn't want to take too much time, but kind of the major impacts due to our structural design. So we had two main things. We went from 7 periods to 6, and added some AG time, but then we also kind of reduced our classes at the high school because we were so intertwined with the high school. No offense, Wade, I know he's there. He's not taking it personally. We were so intertwined with the high school that we had, I was a bus service. We were running buses all day long over to the high school, 6 periods a day, that if anything different happened at my school or his school, all the kids that had those classes couldn't have those classes, every time. And so I stopped counting at 27 days where they missed class entirely, and then I added that basically they were at minimum 5 minutes late to their class at the high school. They left 5 minutes early. They were 5 minutes late to the class that got back at the middle school. And so it's roughly at minimum 20 hours. So if you add those two things together, they missed about 52 periods in a year just because of that relationship. And to me, that didn't make any sense. So they're not only missing their electives all the time, they're missing class time, they're coming in, walking into a class 5-10 minutes late back at the middle school. It's just, it wasn't ideal. And so that was a big reason we started looking at that. Also just covering classes. They were in, I'd had to pull staff members, pay subs to just watch them, and have study halls, and you know how that goes when they have study halls at the middle school. And so that was just, there were so many of those issues that came up, and then the buses sometimes would forget to come, and it just wasn't great. And so we looked at trying to reduce that we want a positive relationship, but that intertwined relationship. And so some of the positives of the change and that we talked about was just slowing down the pace a little bit. You go from self-contained elementary school right to the 7-period day, and plus an AG, so 8 periods. It's a lot in one day. Classes are 47, 48 minutes. If you throw in an assembly, they're down to almost 35 minutes. I mean, it gets really quick. And so we really took a look at that and wanting to slow the pace down, increase time where they're just in class, focusing on what they need to focus on. Fewer transitions, more AG time, like I said before, and less odd schedules. With a 6-period day and a 29-minute AG, all I do for an assembly is just put the AG at the end of the day, and classes are reduced by 2 minutes. And so even if we have a weird schedule, even if we have a early release, our class time, our instructional academic time, isn't reduced that much. And so that was a big thing also that we looked at as a positive. Now the negative, and that was one thing we wrestled with, was the reduced number of electives. Because when you go from 7 periods to 6, you're taking out a class. And so the number of electives kids could take would go down. And that was something that we struggled with, and even some of the elective teachers struggled with a little bit, but was something that we wanted to try, because we felt like we wanted to kind of make a decision about what we felt was best as a school, and we wanted to give that a shot, knowing that that was a downside. And the ultimate goal being, then we're going to work really, really hard to give kids their first or second choice with an elective, making sure they got what they want. And then long term, looking at creative ways to somehow add something back in. But as you guys know, if you try to focus on 6 or 7 things at one time, you're going to do most of them not well. We're trying to focus on 2 or 3 things and then work on some of those as we go along. So a couple things with the forecasting process, just because I know it's been brought to your attention. I know people have talked about specifically the middle school and electives. I just want to talk through that process a little bit. I wouldn't normally get this detailed, but I just feel like I owe it to you since people have been bringing this up. Basically, it all has to do with our forecasting process. And so I try to be as student-centered as I can in terms of giving kids options within reason, because if I had the option, I would have had a lot of history classes and PE, and that was about it. But so we have to, weigh what we have to do and all of that. But in the spring, we basically have forms that have a list of all the electives that we offer and include a spot where they can add some that they want. And even if we don't include a spot, middle school kids will add spots and put it in there too, with explanations of what those classes are. And so we ask them just to rank order 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, what do you want to take? And make sure you put number 1 is your number 1 choice, down to number 4, and then take it home, talk to their parents, so parents can edit, and then they send it back, and then we go from there. And I take those results, and that's what I use to try to build my master schedule, at least with electives. I have to do my essentials first, but then I use those numbers to drive what I do. And I attempt to be as responsive as I can to their wants, but then I weigh, their choice with what I'm required to do, and then just feasibility. For example, there was a foods program back to when Mr. Blanda was principal, and Dandy as well. There was a foods class. They always put down foods, and with the popularity of the foods class at the high school, they always put down foods, and they want to eat, so it'd be a fun class to take. There's no way I could do a foods class. I don't have a classroom. I don't have any classroom that's equipped to do a foods class. And so that's one that's just not feasible, and so I can't even really address that one. But I try to with the other stuff that's there. So specifically in regards to music, because I know that that's been talked about with the reduction in music, it came down to forecasting numbers. There was a huge demand for coding. I had 91 kids who it was their first through third choice to do a coding class. So now I had two beginning coding classes this semester. Next semester I'll have a beginning coding and advanced coding class, because that was a big demand. a video tech class. I had 62 total, 30 is first and second choice of just 7th and 8th graders wanted to do a video tech class. And Jackie Renaud's doing that. We're streamlining that with the high school right into Scan TV. So we can get freshmen that get there. We're using the same equipment, so they get there and they can go right into the video tech program. And a lot of kids want to do that. And so the band numbers were low, and I don't know if that was just a natural dip with who was there, but I just didn't have enough. I had 5 8th graders put it as their first or second choice, and 19 7th graders. And so, but the positive part is 21 6th graders wanted to take band, and so we basically put those into 2 periods to at least have 2 periods of band instead of having 7th and 8th mix. And I know this is getting super detailed, but I just want to tell you that that's basically what it's based off of. And actually, Mrs. Bataya, she was my go-to person who will do anything. So right now she's doing choir and drama, but I had her ready to do a period of band if necessary, if the numbers justified it, because that's what she did last year. But then the numbers aren't there, and so I just have to adjust with what I have. Shanna Chandler, if you have not been to Shanna Chandler's art room, please go. I'll tell you a date later on. There's 121 kids in just 7th and 8th grade who put art as a first through 4th choice. 76 is our first or second choice. If I had 6th grade, I could legitimately have 2 art teachers if the second one was like Shanna Chandler. So I try to set it up like that and then adjust to those needs as they come. Would I like more band and choir and more of that you saw tonight? Totally. And so I think we need to work on, recruitment and retention and getting it out there. We had the marching band come so the kids could see what marching band was all about. We had an assembly for that. Those kind of things. I think having a dedicated music room, working on that with the high school, and they've been really good about letting us use the football room as a music room, having staff in the building, knowing kids. I mean, all those things would help, and I think it would be great to have more of it. I just have to adjust to those numbers because I really do believe, especially at middle school, if kids want something, I'm going to do whatever I can to give it, and if they want some other stuff, I'm going to try to make that happen. So I hope I didn't yes, I probably got too detailed on that, but so anyway, sorry.
I don't think you got too detailed at all.
That's just a little bit of the forecasting process and the master schedule process. It's a puzzle, but. So on the back of your handout, some other stuff that we're working on, a renewed attendance focus, and I want to specifically mention Jessie Larson, our attendance secretary, is doing awesome work with that. She's very creative with incentives and just awareness and communication. Our average attendance is 94, but what we're really focused on is our regular attenders, is those who are in attendance 90% or more. And so we have about 84% of our kids who are in attendance 90% of the time. And that's really what we're focused on, is bumping that up, because we know if you're there, you got to be there to learn. And so we're trying to get kids there. Refining and building elective options, kind of going off what I just talked about. The video tech room, working with Drew Hines at the tech department and the high school to try to streamline the video tech. So they're doing videos. They did videos of Veterans Day, doing a lot of creative stuff so that it's a pipeline right to the high school. The greenhouse is probably going to be an option next year. The person I had lined up for that this year got an AD job in another district. So I'm putting on that on hold till next year. And then the music room. The high school, the football guys have been really generous with sharing that space, because I really would love to have a space where it's just band and just choir dedicated to that. I think that would help. Darby Hector and Janet Delisky are advisors for our new Interact Club that has about 24 kids, which is just a kind of a junior Rotary club. And they're starting to come up with different activities that they're going to do, and really excited to see that focus on service and giving back. And then, like I mentioned, so the Art Lunch and Learn Showcase on January 16th, I've never honestly seen anything like it. You just have to come. It's completely student driven. Their artwork is amazing, especially for middle schoolers, and they run the whole thing. And they research their person, and they give presentations, and it's completely about the students and what they produce, and I've never seen anything like that with this age of student. So please come to that. I'm guessing it's probably around 11 to 1, but I can send details to you at some point. And then Career Day, January 17th, we bring in 20 plus people from different careers to talk to the kids about what it takes to be an engineer, a farmer, a dental hygienist, all sorts of stuff. And they get to pick what they want to listen to and go around into different sessions. And down below, and I won't go too much into this because I've taken a lot of time already, but our goals, we try to align our goals with what the district wants, and I'm all about that transition to high school and about kids getting that diploma. Not that it's just about that, but getting them in a spot where they can choose what they want to do. And so we're always trying to refine our intervention system and attack the barriers that kids have, whether it's social, emotional, academic, whatever it is, and then fill in those holes with using STAR mainly, but to try to shore up those skills that they're struggling in. And I just want to shout out to all my teachers. Ultimately, it comes down to the greatest factor in student achievement is the teacher in the classroom and great teaching. And our teachers are working really well together. They've developed our grade teams where they're talking about kids, they're talking about curriculum, they're talking about how to work together, and they're just doing a fantastic job. And that's ultimately going to be the biggest impact on student achievement. And then I put students will earn at least 6 high school credits by completion of 9th grade, and that might be confusing because I'm at the middle school, but it goes to that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade that can be brutal. And so in our AG class, we are transitioning after January to almost an entire focus on 9th grade. And so the rest of the school we'll still be doing our SEL lessons, but we'll be focusing on, okay, it's the second semester of your 8th grade year, we still need to do these things, but we're going to start focusing on the high school. And we're going to spend the month of February in the forecasting process, so we make sure they're in the class they're supposed to be in. We're going to have the counselors from the high school come over. We're going to take some trips over to the high school. We've set up meetings with the high school counselors to start those transition discussions to make it as smooth as we possibly can. Because it's ultimately we're setting them up to be successful in high school socially and academically, and I want to make that as easy as we can. And so anyway, that seems like an odd thing for me to put down, but that to me is one of my best indicators of how good a job we're doing, is how they complete their freshman year. Because if we handed them over successfully and had a good transition, then they'll be successful. And if they're not, then we need to look at what we've been doing. So that's what I have for you. Do you have any questions?
All right. Thanks, Brett.
I have a question for you. So just on that last comment that you made about one of your goals is to have your kids complete 6 credits by the time they get to high school. Are those
by the end of 9th grade.
Oh, by the end of 9th grade.
So
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
That would be awesome. They'd be way ahead.
I was like, you just reduced your elective.
Yeah, that's right. No.
And that doesn't.
No, and it's kind of a analysis way after the fact.
Yeah.
But to me, it's an important one. And we've tried to look at the semester too. Once this first semester is over, we'll look at how they're doing. We'll run, how many classes they failed and what they failed in, and discipline reports and all that stuff, just to see how their transition's doing. But yeah, one of my things is looking at how their freshman year goes, because I think that reflects on how we're doing.
Exactly. I thought you meant 8th grade. I
Yeah.
must have misunderstood
We're
you. I'm
very
like, wow,
advanced. We're very
that's really ambitious. But, okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one other quick thing is that you said that you do have band and choir. You have 5 8th grade students, 19 7th grade, and 21 6th grade that are actually doing band or are interested in it, or
so those were all forecasting numbers.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they did last spring, And then that's what I use to try to determine what classes we can or can't fill.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do have,
So off the top of my head, I don't know how big those, we have 2 periods of band, but one of them is basically a beginning band, and then the other one is more like a concert band.
yeah,
And one of them has a lot of 6th graders in it,
okay.
as opposed to 3 bands that we had before, where it was advanced concert band and then kind of beginning music for 6th grade.
Okay,
So that was the shift because of
Okay.
the forecasting numbers.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarity. I just wanted to make sure I had that right. Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Brett?
Good job down there, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great presentation.
Okay, next up is board reports. Anybody want to talk about what went on at the School Board Association convention?
Sure.
Go for it, Shelley.
I just wrote up a little something. I just wanted to say that I did attend the OSBA convention in November, along with many of my other board members. As always, these seminars that are offered to school board members are educational and very informative. They spark good discussion amongst fellow members and give us an opportunity to bring information back to our own districts. Some of I've actually listed all of the seminars that I attended. They're on my Facebook page, on my school board Facebook page, and they have all the details about what the seminars were about. So if you'd like to take a look at that, I advise you to go to my Facebook page. But I'll just briefly go over some of the things I attended. Let's see, I attended Equity and Inclusion to Enhance Student Achievement, Education Drives Facility Planning, a case study of Corvallis School District. That was a very good one. I went to the OSBA Marion County Regional Roundtable where things are happening locally in our county, and that was informative. Moderating Facebook comments legally in politically divisive times. That was very interesting. I learned a lot about the legalities and of posting things on social media, not just Facebook, but any social media site. And honestly, those, I should say legal, I don't know, the legal wording, everything is kind of up in the air. Judges and lawyers are working out language to decide what is going to work in the courts and what's not, and what's offensive and what's not. I mean, it's very interesting. So that was a very insightful one. School boards and system improvements, supporting educators, stories from the field, and then PERS basics. And it really wasn't basics. It was Jonathan and I attended. Oh, and Tim, you were in there. The PERS. We were wanting to get an update on the latest PERS numbers and how that's going to affect our budget coming up in the biennial year. So it was good, and we had lots of good conversation amongst each other, and I think it's healthy for us to attend conventions like that, and we can talk about different ideas and what's working in our district, what we can bring back, what we can implement, things like that. So I thought it was successful. So that's my take on that.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Shelley. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say kudos for us for 6 out of 7
Yeah.
that's being there. That's awesome. It's 2 years in a row, I think. 6 out of 7 have been there, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It's some really good information and good seminars. Irv Statley actually called me this afternoon and said to tell everybody that he was there too and that he enjoyed it and learned a lot of good things. I actually said I went to the PERS thing, because I've always tried to wrap my head around the whole PERS thing. It's very complicated. But that was really good in a way, kind of depressing, but the reality of it. but it's something we're going to be dealing with for a long, long time. But I just wanted to say too that one thing I'm always really impressed with when I go to things like this, where you hear from other school districts and meet different people. I'm always really impressed with what a good job we're doing in this school district. You know, so kudos to our administrators, our teachers, all our staff. Sometimes you'll go to you'll look in the list of seminars, you go, oh, that one sounds good, and I'd like to learn more about that. And then you go and it's like, we're already doing all that. So that's one thing that always kind of hits me when I go to these, is that we're doing a lot of things really well in this district. You know, of course there's stuff we need to work on, but there's a lot of good things happening. So that's one takeaway that I always come back with.
Well, I'll add that, you know, so I went to the PERS 101, they called it, and then also the revenue reform session, which followed, which sort of a strong correlation, I guess, between the two. And, you know, it was really interesting to kind of wrap your head around where we are, why we're there, how long it's going to be. They talked actually a lot about some of the court cases that have, you know, sort of overruled some of the few actions they've actually tried to take to fix the problem. And, you know, so we not only have legislature problems, we have judicial barriers. I mean, there's a lot going on, right, to trying to fix it. And, you know, the revenue reform side, I think, is what we're really going to hear a lot about over the next few weeks, months. You know, it seems to be there's a lot of discussion. One of the sessions I went to actually specifically was one of the state senators talking about sort of where they're trying to go with it this year. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of the actual numbers. I thought it was great. It was the first one I'd been to, and very useful.
You know, and I spent most of my time focused on the equity training. And it's something that you know, we started to do way back when in the district, even as recent as this summer with the summer platform that the OSB offered with a lot of the convention and the teaching. And I was kind of hoping to hear maybe if there was one plug-and-play definition for equity. I was hoping. I know hope's not a strategy. You know. Yeah, but it would be nice. But definitely it's not. And you know, I go back to the example that I think Andy sent out a nice memo regarding one of the classes taught by, I think it was the principal for one of the North Clackamas High School. And he mentioned that you know, they're very involved with equity at this time. However, he also mentioned they have 83 dialects spoken in their district. Now, it's not different languages, but 83 dialects within the given languages. We don't have those type of issues. So their definition of equity and how they adapt and perform is going to be different than what we have. You know, however, what I did come away with is that we do have a very high-performing district. And I like the fact that equity is one of the discussions that we've had in the past. It's going to be ongoing, and it's going to be in the future as well. So a lot of the folks that I've spoken with from different districts throughout the state of Oregon haven't even begun the discussion yet. And so one of the big impassioned pleas that I received or was able to catch was that they're asking, you know, all districts, you know, this is something that we really need to pay attention to, and to make sure that it's something that we, I guess, start to, you know, start on that path and that journey. Well, you know, like Tim mentioned, it's something that we have been doing. We do have a high-performing district. So for me, it's just something that just further solidifies the fact of who we are, where we're going, and why we do perform as such. So that was my takeaway as well.
Okay. Thanks to everybody for attending. Anybody can do the math? I'm the one who didn't go. Business interests. I'm in the Christmas tree industry business, and it's an incredibly busy season, and it's very hard for me to attend that meeting. But the times I've been has been very informative. And thanks for attending, everybody. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Okay. Next up is more.
I wanted
Please.
to bring up that we talked about the policy, the budget committee policy?
Oh, discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to
Do
add that,
wanna
you want to
do
get that on
for
the,
board reports, or do you want to do that
we can just
for-
talk about it now, because everyone's here, but,
You want to talk about it now?
well, sure,
That'd be
yeah,
good?
what would
Okay.
you like to add, yeah?
Okay, so there's one other thing that I wanted to possibly have for a future agenda item, and that is the policy DBEA, the Budget Committee policy that we have. Most of you know that recently we had a Budget Committee appointment session, and it seemed that there was quite a bit of debate and confusion, and maybe just a lack of understanding language that we have in our Budget Committee policy. The interpretations of our policy is lots of different interpretations, I suppose. I think it would be useful and beneficial to us if we could review that policy, possibly bring in an OSBA policy director to help us look at that language, and make sure that we have a policy that we all understand and interpret in the same way for next year's, so we can be proactive and make sure that we all have an understanding as well as the public. So I talked with Tom, and he said that that was a reasonable request, so I just wanted to put that out there for that.
I'd throw my support behind that. I think that there are many ways to interpret that policy. And I think that if we could clarify it or consider clarifying it,
Right.
it would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll talk to Andy about adding it for, as a future item on a future agenda, work session or something.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
I don't think it'd be necessary to bring OSBA in. I think that's something, to me, it's not that hard of a policy to understand, but that's my personal opinion, but I think it's something we could flush out on our own. I don't think it's necessary to bring an OSBA person in on our own.
Okay.
I mean, I think we can clarify some of the ambiguities in the policy probably on our own. I don't know if we're supposed to, but I think it's worthy of a discussion. I don't.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what other folks' feelings are about it, but it definitely needs to be boiled down. I mean, more clarification, I think, so.
Okay.
I have no issues. It seems like it generated confusion, and therefore we ought to look at it.
Yeah, perfect. Well said. Okay.
I just have a couple more things.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
I was at the OSBA convention. I was at one of my seminars, and Hilda Roselli, she's from the Chief Education Office at OSBA. She's an OSBA representative. She recommended that going into our discussions for strategic and vision planning, that we should look over our TEL survey again in a little bit more detail, to make sure that, when we're discussing that our strategic and vision planning, that we take some of those items that we are doing well and things that we might need to work on, and, kind of partner with them in our discussion. She just recommended that, and so I thought I would bring it up here, since we're starting the discussions for that. So, some food for thought on that. I also wanted to follow up on Jennifer's idea of having music on the agenda, but Mr. Belando has already indicated that we're going to have something in January, correct? Okay, thanks. And then also I wanted to follow up with the Silver Falls Education Association request to have a board member attend their forum meetings. And I think Jennifer brought this up at our last meeting at Victor Point. I wanted to ask if we could get clarification on the law, what the law is regarding our communication level with SFEA, our particular association. That way we're clear on where we stand as board members. And because they have come a few times to, want more communication, but I don't know where the line needs to be for that communication. So if we could possibly find out what the law is on that, that would be helpful, I think, so we have a clarification. Moving forward.
That's on our next work session's agenda.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks so much.
I just had one other really quick thing. I went up to Mark Twain this last week. I've been going a couple times just to volunteer in the classroom. And they now have a buzz-in lock system at the front door. And so that's something that I've been wanting to see for a long time. So whoever was responsible to finally get that in, that's awesome. And the staff, the secretaries are really liking it too. They said I'd like to see it everywhere eventually. And I know we'll get there. So thank you for doing that.
Butte Creek actually put it in last week or week before last as well.
Cool.
Good.
Tom, I do have one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe I should have put this on when we talked about the OSBA conference, because there was a lot of talk about revenue reform and cost containment. I just wanted, and I think Jonathan and I sat in on the state senator who talked about the tour, the road show that Andy mentioned. I just wanted to thank Andy for giving his input when they came to Woodburn. It seems like, to me, listening to the state senators and representatives talk about their experiences, that they get it, they understand what the big issues are, and we could have some positive movement in the legislature. So again, thank you to Andy.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Next is our second public comment period for limited discussion and action items. Anybody like to present? Okay, moving on. We don't have any action items for the night, so move on to that. And seeing that's it, so now we are going to adjourn to executive session for 3 items. For ORS 1926602K, to consider matters relating to school safety or a plan that responds to safety threats made toward school safety planning. And 6602F, to consider school records exempt by law from public inspection, a sick leave bank request. And 6602D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated to carry on labor negotiations, collective bargaining with Silver Falls Education Association. All right, thanks for attending. Okay, let's return to open session, and we have one action item, consideration of a sick leave bank request. Do I have a motion?
I move we award Preston Ward a sick leave bank of 15 days.
Okay, I got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, do we have any further business? Okay, seeing none, meeting adjourned.